Discover the Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast, hosted by Tiffany Benitez. Here, the complexities of being a woman in the tech industry are unraveled through discussions on key issues, personal growth, and how to succeed despite systematic challenges. It's a source of empowerment and inspiration for all women at all stages of their tech careers. Welcome to Women in Tech Trailblazers. I am so excited to be back with another episode with each and every one of you. And the leader that we have here today, I am just over the moon about, and I'll just tell you, slightly like girl fan, Saima, I'm going to introduce her formally, but I'll just tell you, she is a leader at a company that I currently work at, but it's more than a leader and more than a title. It's like actually watching someone actively live out what it is that they talk about. And so for me, that is big and why I kind of wanted to bring her on the episode today. So just a little bit about Saima. She is the Senior Vice President of Healthcare Digital at Compass Digital, and she leads digital transformation strategy for Compass's group healthcare sectors. She has over 20 years of experience in healthcare technology and is a purpose-driven leader. Keywords, purpose-driven leader, dedicated to building impactful, user-centered solutions that elevate experience for patients, residents, caregivers, and families across the continuum of care. Prior to joining Compass Digital, Saima served as the Chief Technology Officer of Clinical Solutions at Premier Incorporated, where she led the development of scalable digital platforms aimed at improving clinical outcomes and operational efficiencies for healthcare systems nationwide. She is a passionate advocate for diversity and inclusion in technology. Again, part of why I really wanted to bring you on today, Saima, is again, I've got to, over the last 9 months, really watch you actively live this out. She is the executive sponsor for the Women in Tech initiative here at Compass Digital and fostering supportive ecosystem for women technologists and allies through mentorship programs, leadership development, and community events across North America. Beyond the boardroom, because we always like to cover, what are you guys doing besides just your role? She brings a holistic lens to her leadership, drawing on her certification as a yoga instructor, go yogis, and her commitment to wellness and mindfulness. She is also a proud supporter of her children's athletic endeavors, finding joy and balance through family and community. And her belief in whole person well-being informs her approach to designing care-forward technology that empowers both caregivers and individuals as they serve. So welcome, Saima, to the show. I am super excited to have you.
Well, thank you. Super warm welcome. And it's always humbling to hear people talk about yourself, but thank you for that warm welcome, and equally fangirl of Tiffany and seeing what she's doing here and the impact that you're making in the time that you've been here.
Thank you so much. Okay, so the background and the purpose of our episode and the podcast in general is really authenticity. It's that we really have all of these areas in our lives as women that we have to show up and kind of be on, right? And we have to make sure everything's perfect, and we have to make sure that it's all put together and that everyone's watching. But this is an authentic space, and we've created this space on purpose to come together just to talk about things that matter to each and every one of us that don't get a lot of talk and visibility otherwise. Now, the topic for today, the power of inclusion. I think we throw inclusion around a lot in different spaces, but the true power behind it and what that actually means is what we're going to cover today. So I always want to start off and say, because authenticity and some of that I just shared is really the heart of who we are, I always want to ask our people that come on our show, our guests, what does authenticity mean to you?
Yeah, that's an awesome way to start. I mean, I think when you talk to people and you say, what's authenticity? The first thing you'll hear is bringing who you are, your real self, everywhere you go. From a work standpoint, showing up and not being afraid to be, to your point, as women, not too much. Am I, too loud? Did I push back too hard? But just finding that balance, right? Always being respectful and, having that care for people, but being your authentic self, not just about everything, at least for me, my background, how I grew up, who my parents are, just the family dynamics. I think that's led me to be the person I am, but not being afraid to hide that, not be oh, let me tell you about myself every single day to everybody that comes into your office, but using that to shape who you are as a leader, as a woman, as a person, and just not being afraid to be hey, this is who I am. This is my background. This influences me, whether I know it or not, on how I behave in a professional, personal environment. and not being afraid is, again, especially as women, to be perceived as being too much in, finding the people. And, not, I always say not everyone's gonna be your person. Not everyone's gonna resonate, with what you have to say. And you might be too much for some people, but that's okay. And you shouldn't be afraid to show who you are and let your personality shine through. So to me, that's being, trying to be who you are and not being afraid of it.
Such a valuable perspective, because I'll tell you, I've spent the bulk of my life just thinking that I was too much. And not because I was ever, I think, really too much. I just think that we were all created so different, right? And we each were created to do exactly whatever it is that we're doing. And I think the world feeds us that we need to like water that down so it's palatable to someone that doesn't feel like you should be the way you are. And I think the more we have these conversations, and especially with our next generation, that's a lot of my heart is making sure that our girls, especially, but boys and girls, truly understand that like you are you and you were created that way, right? It doesn't mean we all don't have room for growth, but being proud, like you said, of who you are and operating fully in that, knowing you're not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. It doesn't make you a bad person or them a bad person. It just means maybe they're not your inner circle people. And, so I really love that, because again, it's just a journey that I've been on as a woman of like trying to figure out, how do I not be so much, because I just kept getting fed that I'm a lot, and like I was created to be a lot. Like we all were, right? In different ways, shapes, and form to do what we were supposed to do. Okay, so I want you, if you can talk to us a little bit about, I read your bio and it's incredible. You've got a ton of experience. I mean, from boardrooms to CTO to, I mean, you've got a lot of background behind you. But can you talk to us a little bit about your career journey, and not like laying out your resume, but like that journey and being a woman in that journey, and like what that really is like, especially just knowing, right? There's 28% of us, like national average across technology as women, and even less in positions such as yours. So what is that like?
Yeah, I mean, I'll try to give you the abbreviated version, but I started my career, this will age me a little bit, but right around, I was graduating right around that whole dot-com era, like 2000, Y2K, people were starting to understand technology. They were scared of it. There was this whole mindset, oh my gosh, when, the year 2000 hits, everything, the world's going to come to an end. People were kind of scared of tech, but it was out there. Graduated, with a MIS degree, management information systems. Most people in my family and friends, they were like, "What's that? What do you do with that? What's that all about?" But from a tech standpoint, but even starting there in college, in my classrooms and stuff, I was, out of maybe 20 people in classes or 30, there's a handful of women, a couple that were even doing, that degree. All my professors were all male. So that was already kind of like, okay, well, this is something that's going to be a little daunting. So graduate, move up to DC, wanted to really work for a startup. I had this in my mind. That's going to be really cool. Going to work for a startup. Best thing, I ever did. Started working for this little startup in DC. It was like employee number 5. Really cool group of people. And it was just a really, really awesome opportunity where you got a chance to just, when you're a small growing startup, be everything. One day you're a project manager, one day you're a business analyst, one day you're a QA person, one day you're on a client call. Massive Fortune, 100 clients, flew all over the country, world. The exposure was amazing. It was great. Loved it. First 5 years, the company goes on, gets acquired by Deloitte, like right at the 5-year mark. And it's like, whoa, you go into this like real structured environment. And long story short, I'm there for a couple of years, have to be as part of the transition. Things change on a personal standpoint. I come over, that was about a 7-8 year journey to work at Premier, which is a local Charlotte-based healthcare company. Amazing place, amazing journey there. I was there for 12 years. It was just a really cool, really, the experience firsthand, my career. I'll talk a little bit about that, just, what that was like and what I learned there. But this was I think where I really grew up, where it was a really private company. It went public pretty much the same time frame. I started a really powerful female leader there. Her name was Susan, took over as the CEO, probably till this day, the most, dynamic speaker. You'd see at our town halls or conferences, and just was just an amazing role model leader, just to kind of see her, out there. And I think that was the first time in my career I was like, oh, wow, that's someone, that looks like me, talks like me. Like, why couldn't I do that? So it was like a kind of like a, hey, there's, something here. I haven't seen this before. And really cool, trajectory there. Did everything there, project management office to, software engineering leadership, and then ultimately went on to have ownership of the whole technology organization for a clinical practice. Great from that standpoint. So many just lessons there and so much growth. And then it's been just about 4 years where I had the opportunity to come over to Compass and lead the technology here for the healthcare sector. You made some points about just women in general in technology and in leadership positions. Don't quote me exactly, but a couple years ago we had pulled some numbers because I was on another a panel like this, but it was close to about 50% of the people in our tech organization here at Compass are women, which is pretty, from a industry standpoint, from the average standpoint, that's well above. So, so I came in here and it was nice to see that there's been an emphasis on that, whether it's organically or people, I do think the leaders have made some conscious decisions. So it was, but, from a career standpoint to where, the girl that was at the startup, employee number 5, scared, not sure when I should speak up and what I should do versus going to Premier and then just moving, every seemed like year, the role would grow. Like, hey, can you take this on? Oh, we had an acquisition. We're going to move you here. And then just finding the confidence to be like, I don't know if I can fully do that, but you know what? I'm going to take it. And then, to where I am today, and hopefully being able to share some of that, share some of those stories and nuggets along the way, because there could be, someone here or someone out there that's the girl at the startup or kind of, scared to take on that role. So, but yeah, that was the abbreviated version.
Yeah, it's so impactful. And I'll tell you, like, the reality is, first of all, if anytime you say woman CTO, everyone turns their head. There's just not a lot. And not just from a CTO perspective. I just think women in leadership, and I will agree with you. The reason I actually took the role at Compass is because of the diversity that not just has been talked about, but that I've seen. And there's awards. There's like national awards out there that go to back that. So I do incredibly love that about Compass. But something that you said really, really stood out to me. And it's that before we jump back in, a quick thank you to Women in Technology of Northwest Arkansas for being part of this journey. We cannot thank them enough. They continue to create space for women to grow, connect, and lead in tech. Let's get back to the conversation. Once you saw her, it took you to a different level of belief. It's not that maybe you didn't ever think you could be X, right? But seeing you or seeing someone like you or seeing someone that looks like you or talks like you, right? Like that, seeing that there's a power in that we don't get from many other places. And so the point is that we need to all continuously be that for other people to see, right? It could be people in our same age group, people older, right? People like our next generation. Like it's equally powerful because people are looking for that. I didn't have a lot of female mentors throughout my career. I'm like 23 years in with tech, but like I didn't see that. I didn't have a lot of women that I could go to and say, can you mentor me? Number one, as little as we may have now nationally, there were even less then. And they were wearing all these hats and trying to figure it out. So time for like mentoring was hard. And so I have some incredible male mentors, but I didn't have a lot of women to look up to see like, oh my gosh, like she does this. She's doing an incredible job, right? And how do I learn from her? Because there's just different journeys. Like men are incredible, but as women and men, we walk two different journeys. So to have someone that can maybe talk a little bit about that journey and kind of share that is super powerful.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's one of my, biggest things and number one thing. Like if I had to be like one thing that's, stood out and, by almost, whatever, 25 years doing this, I think there's just so much power in seeing someone that looks like you, talks like you, has, potential, same challenges that they're dealing with from a personal standpoint, juggling, the family and, yeah, everything that you have going on at work. There's just, I don't think we can underestimate just that power on seeing someone up there that's a female in a strong leadership position and inspiring someone that might be struggling.
Yeah, I love it. And talking about it is how that happens, right? Like talking about some of those struggles again. We love the highlight reels and we talk about all the amazing things that happen and all the amazing like boards we sit on. But like sometimes some vulnerability is equally powerful, just so she knows, whoever she is, that she's not the only one struggling, that doesn't have it together all day, every day. I think it is really powerful. So inclusion, I know our topic today really focusing in on inclusion. And I asked you what authenticity means to you, but can you share with us briefly, like, what does inclusion mean to you? And then really, like, what do you think? There's power with that word, but what does inclusion mean to you? And then what is the power that you think comes behind it?
Yeah. I mean, so, if I kind of relate it to like my personal experience, I will say that majority of my career, I've been the only female at the table, at the leadership table. Even now, and, unfortunately, it's kind of how it is that you're the only, person that is different in that sense. So from an inclusion standpoint, I think I've been, lucky along the way where I've had allies, people that even when I'm not in the room will advocate on behalf of me or, kind of have your back. Or if you're thinking, gee, I don't know if I'm ready to that, for that. I'm sure everybody's heard that stat where majority of the time, you know, men will be, if they're not ready, if they're like, 50% ready or whatever, they'll be like, yeah, I can do it. And women have to be like, well, until I know 100% everything, I don't know if I can do that, just because that's just how we're more cautious. So from an inclusion standpoint, going back to that, I think finding, people and creating spaces everywhere that you have the ability to create that space to make that person that's sitting at the table feel like they belong, they're welcome. If you're in a room and you're at that table and you're sensing, right, just having that, sense or, some that empathy and being like, it looks like they're not speaking up, looks like when they try to speak up, looks like when they try, they someone else, steps in and then they kind of just, go back, including them, inviting them to the table, asking them to speak and, telling everybody else, pause for a second, let's kind of hear what they have to say. So to me, it's everybody has, some table that you're sitting at. And if you can include everybody and then make them feel like that, hey, your voice matters, about value what you have to say. And, I'm going to sit here and listen. So to me, whatever I can do, and it's not just females, right? Let's just not, there's allies, there's, other folks that support us. It doesn't have to be just a female. If you can include people wherever you're sitting to make them feel comfortable and make them feel like they belong, I think that's the best thing you could possibly do.
I love that because it was a call and a charge, not just to us as women. Like I do wholly believe, like wherever you are, whatever space you're in, make more chairs. That's just something I always say, like create seats. I was at a conference not too long ago and this girl said, if there aren't any seats and there's no room, just tell someone to scooch over. And I just like everyone went wild on
Make
that
a
'cause
seat.
it's
Yeah.
true, like create one. But I think our allies as well, like there's a charge there too, right? It's not just us kind of off tackling this thing. There's a charge there too of like, okay, also make seats, right? We're having conversations, just create space. I think that's the reality. And create space intentionally, not just for people that look like you or talk like you or think like you, like create diverse space because the most powerful teams are the more diverse teams. So if everyone at your table looks like you, just so you know, you won't be the leading table just because you're missing so many different perspectives and value add. So I think there's actually like intentional tables that I love watching be created, and women in tech groups are one of them, just because since we're in the tech area and kind of talking about that today. So you have to really kind of start and you kind of charge from an executive perspective, the women in tech group at Compass. What do you think that groups like that, so really kind of some of those intentional groups that really focus in on inclusion and equality, et cetera, like what do you feel like these groups add to the power of inclusion?
Yeah. I mean, I think, just one, we're so, lucky to have the population that we do have here at Compass with so many women in tech, I think giving them a place to come in a very structured format, events, monthly, quarterly, for them to be able to come and feel like there's a space where they belong, right? That there's a very specific focus on them, providing them, again, people that look like them, talk like them, that from a career path, they might be, they might have gone through the same career path, setting up mentorship programs, setting up those, finding those allies, just being able to network, right, within the organization and just be like, oh, okay. And keeping them here at Compass or, whatever organization it is. And, a lot of it to me is, would have been, this is, for me, the first real women in tech group in my 25, years in technology that I've been part of, that we're lucky. We have support from, my boss, our CTO here. He's amazing. He's been all for it, supportive. All the senior leadership, my peers, everybody's been like, oh my gosh, we need this. And I think it gives, like all the, women that are, whether they're starting in their career, they've been in this journey for a while, be like, okay, this matters here. They're, they care about our voice and they're giving us, whatever it is, whether it's the space or the funding or, the time to be able to come together and share and learn and bring the guest speakers. So I think it gives women and our allies a place to be very focused and know that it matters what our challenges are.
Absolutely. So mentorship, I know is a word that I feel like it's a buzzword sometimes. Mentorship is very powerful, but I think the way that people throw it around sometimes and the way that like we misuse what it actually is interesting. But I'd like to know, like, true mentorship, right? Do you think there's value behind that? And do you think as people are asking, like, how do I really like build, develop, grow myself, plug myself into places where there will be maybe future opportunity? Do you think that mentorship at all plays into value? Like, is there value around that? Is it a place where it truly leads and helps develop people?
Yeah, to me, I think the mentorship to me is, I personally don't think, like from a structure standpoint, there should be like, oh my God, like you got to meet, this time, many times a year, you got to talk about this stuff, make sure you're talking about career path. To me, it needs to be organic, a safe space where, someone that you connect with, you're comfortable with, they can come by and, informally and be like, here's kind of what's going on. Can I pick your brain a little bit? And you can share your perspective. To me, that's mentorship. I had very early on, I wouldn't even call this like, a mentor. It was, a very strong, female leader I worked with at the startup, and I was struggling with speaking up, right? Like I was early on in my career and just kind of being scared, not, like I might not know, I might say the wrong thing. What if I piss off the client? And I remember her being like, she called it mean training. We got to do, and that was her way of saying, you got to speak up, you got to find your voice. So that wasn't even to me like a formal mentor, but that was someone who was there kind of being like, hey, let me help you with this. So I think it's powerful. I think that we should try to generally, when we have like networking events, let people kind of meet and hang out. You're going to resonate. Some people are going to resonate with you. Some people aren't, but letting them, figure out and then, approach someone like, hey, can I, it's more like, hey, can you be my sounding board to me? Can you guide me through? And you can have goals that you establish. I think it's super powerful. But I think it's also, it doesn't need to be structured. I think it can be, anybody can be a mentor. And it's got to be, they're aligned and comfortable with each other.
That point of like anyone can be a mentor is key, because I think we like, speaking of women waiting on having it all together, having all the boxes checked, we're like waiting till we have a certain title. No, everyone should always have at least one mentor and one mentee is what I always say, because like to make sure you have everyone has a lot of valuable things to be able to give back. So share that with others. Okay, we're coming up on the end of the episode. Sad faces is always like my least favorite time, just because the conversation is really incredible. But the last question I always try to ask, and that I think is really important, and this is hard, like sorry, not sorry, but but like, it's hard when someone reads your bio because, like, yes, you did those things and you achieved them. It also kind of feels weird, like someone kind of reading it out. And so this question, I think, also sometimes feels equally uncomfortable, but it's an important, impactful question. So it's kind of twofold. Number one, and this is, I think, the difficult part, the back part, not so much, is what legacy do you hope to leave as a female leader, and just you as a human being, right? Because it's not even just about your title or where you work, but what legacy do you want to leave as a woman leader? And then the second part of it is, if you could give one final piece of advice to the listeners, what would it be?
Sure. Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, when you hear the word legacy, it just seems scary. I think if there's just one person who someday maybe is like, hey, you inspired me in this setting, I saw you, or, you had a conversation with me. I don't think we realize the impact we have on people. You think you're just having an elevator conversation, or you run into someone in the cafe, or there's a women in tech event, or I was at a town hall. You don't think about it, right? Because we're just kind of going through what we're doing. So kind of like, the influence I had with a female CEO, where it was kind of like that light bulb moment, like there's more, to this. So I hope even if it's one person, I can influence them in a positive way, and it helps them personally, professionally. They can be like, hey, I remember when I saw you that one time and I was struggling and you helped me. Even if it helps one person, I think that would be amazing, because work is work, right? As you said, accomplishments are accomplishments. We're in technology. Tech is fleeting. What's cool now won't be in, 5 years. And then, one piece of advice? I have a almost 18-year-old daughter myself, about to be a senior here in high school. I mean, I want them to know, just whether it's personal, whether it's professional, be what we kind of started the conversation with. Don't be afraid to be who you are and be yourself. The people that know you and the people that are your people are going to be there for you no matter what. And they're going to turn up and show up for you always. Just be yourself. And it's okay.
So much. It's a message I wish I'd heard earlier on in my career, but it's one that we're hearing and we're all sharing now. So thank you so much for your time today. I know your calendar is incredibly busy, so thank you for carving out a few minutes to talk to all of us. We are so grateful. And to our listeners, thank you so much for continuously tuning in. We have a ton lined up for you, so just super excited to continue this on. And as usual, like, listen, subscribe. We have all of the socials out there. Thank you so much again, Saima.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Women in Tech Trailblazers podcast. Thanks for being here. If something resonated with you, please share this episode with your friends, your colleagues, or anyone you know that needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to catch what's next. We'll be back soon with more real stories and honest conversations. Until then, keep showing up and let's keep making space at the table.